yesterday's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News. I'm Howard Kane and this is the programme which looks back at the news of today in the papers of yesterday. Gef the Talking Mongoose this week. Back in the news again. He comes in and out over the years. This time a film has been made about the iconic bit of Manx folklore, due to be released this September, we are told. The legend of Gef the Talking Mongoose. The film will be called, or is called, Nanda Foda and the Talking Mongoose, and an all-star cast: Simon Pegg and Minnie Driver, Christopher Lloyd et al. Goes on general release later this year. The story itself, though, of course, oft featured in the Isle of Man and Manx papers. If we turn to the Ramsey Courier of Friday, November the 20th, 1936, an article reprinted from a London paper dated London Wednesday. The Manx Mongoose. You have probably noticed, says the article, the Isle of Man has been looming large in the news over here as a result of a slander action in the High Court. Once more, the Manx Mongoose has created much interest and no little amusement. In a case of this kind, there will always be the believers and the sceptics. Quite right. It is certain that until last week, few Londoners had ever heard of a mongoose, and ever since there's been a steady stream of persons visiting the British Museum and the local reading room in order to learn all they can about the strange animal said to have haunted Cashan's Gap continuously since 1931. Don't be surprised if, when the fine weather comes, if it ever will come, glad to see the weather was bad then as it is now, to find thousands paying a visit Peelside way. One sincerely hopes that most of them may be able to have speech with the remarkable creature. It is stated that Deemster Cowley and Mr. Moore, your Attorney General, visited the haunts of the arrival, but unfortunately we have not been told their judicial findings. Whatever they may be, doesn't matter very much now. It was time that something turned up to take place of the Loch Ness Monster, and whether it be a genuine mongoose or only the semblance of one matters not a rap. We've had quite a lot of fun and no little education out of the affair, which, by the way, has considerably brightened up our newspapers. Couldn't disagree with that. The Isle of Man Examiner of Friday, April the 23rd, 1937. A headline: Is the Talking Mongoose real? And this is on to Dr. Nanda Foda, featured in the new film. A famous scientist's week's visit to home of Gef. We may be on the eve of an important discovery, Dr. Foda is quoted as saying in an exclusive interview with the Examiner. I believe that a genuine mystery is there. To prove that the whole thing is a fraud is just as difficult as it is to prove that it is genuine. Each task would be extremely hard, Dr. Foda is quoted. It is possible we may be on the eve of an important discovery, but whether we can make that discovery depends on Gef's appreciation of science. There is something very fascinating about the whole mystery. It is like a fairy tale come true, and is one of the truest sounding fairy tales I have heard. In a long article, it goes on to say that Dr. Foda is quoted as saying there's no evidence the house is haunted. All the phenomena are just produced by what Gef described himself to be. It was very unfortunate, said Dr. Foda, that Gef refused to make a vocal appearance while I was there. I went up full of the milk of human kindness and sympathy, but he refused to manifest, as he is always adverse to publicity. Had I the opportunity of hearing Gef, possibly I could offer quite definite conclusions. It goes on, Dr. Foda, as a research officer of the International Institute for Psychical Research, was anxious, he says, to delve into the mysterious problem presented by Gef in the hope of being able to make some discovery of great psychical value. Unhappily, Gef, as has been the case when visited by others who have wished to have communication with him, refused to make an appearance while the eminent doctor was staying with the Irvings. He was therefore bound to make his investigations and arrive at his conclusions purely as a result of an exhaustive analysis of possibilities and a careful checking of the various information he obtained from members of the Irving family and other people in the district who claimed to have had some experience of this highly remarkable phenomenon. The poltergeist theory, said Dr. Fodor, is not admissible, for poltergeists are only active for a few weeks and months when an adolescent girl or boy is in the house. Gef has been in this house for over 5 years. There's a wonderful quote as well, saying one interviewer recalled to Dr. Fodor an incident when certain people were leaving the house some 3 years previously, and Gef was alleged to have shouted out, "Leave some money, you skinny devils." He was a cheeky character from all accounts. It is pointed out, however, that there would be no personal motive for the Irvings to have made Gef up. Trying to seek for some personal motive for any deception, Dr. Fodor pointed out the effect of the publicity given to Gef had been that the value of the land which Mr. Irving was farming had in fact depreciated. An adjoining croft, Erie Cushlan, we know where that is, had been given up, mainly, it was said, because of the effect of the supposed haunting. It was said that some 12 mongoose had been let loose on the adjoining farm about 25 years ago to kill off the rabbits, and this was suggested as an explanation of the presence of Gef. The Irvings' cottage and farm, said Dr. Fodor, would be just as desolate if they had to leave it, and no one was likely to have enough courage to buy it. No one realised this more than Mr. Irving himself. And finally, there's a quote about Gef's bus ride. According to information given to me, said Dr. Fodor, Gef can not only perform things which are normal to an animal, but does most unusual things. He told Irving that he was travelling on a bus hanging on to the understructure. Irving said to Gef, "How dare you do that? Weren't you afraid of being seen?" Gef replied, "I watched like hell." Some of Gef's answers, said Dr. Fodor, are of a character which I would not expect Irving to be capable of giving, and are quite consistent, however absurd this might seem, with the contention that he is an intelligent and courageous animal. There's something very fascinating, said Dr. Fodor, about the whole mystery. I feel that the Isle of Man could exploit Gef in some manner. It certainly has done these days. It is not a frightening mystery. It is not a spook. Rather, it is a wonderful story. It should be included in all books of fairy tales. It's a treasure trove for folklore. If Gef is an animal, he is a splendid animal, and I love him, the doctor concluded. Well, that might well be the case. However, in the Isle of Man Examiner of Friday the 21st of February 1947, we hear the article, "Talking Mongoose Killed. Gef, the famous Dorby spook, is snared, went out without a word of protest," says the sub-headline. Gef, the Dorby spook, talking ghost animal of Dúrlais Cashan near Glenmay, whose phenomenal talents created a countrywide sensation a dozen years ago, has been laid at last. Nothing like killing something popular, is there? So believes Mr. Leslie Graham, present owner of the lonely farmstead, after the Irvings had left, of course, who has successfully snared within 10 yards of the house around which it has been roaming during the year of his occupancy, an animal of a type entirely foreign to the Isle of Man, which answers strikingly to the descriptions of the celebrated talking mongoose. The animal is of the weasel variety, but larger and evidently of considerable age, 3 feet long with black and yellow mottled fur and weighing 5 pounds 1 ounce. Mr. Graham says it is a type of animal which does not move about much and has probably been around the place for many years. He is convinced it is the subject which was accredited with extraordinary ability and attracted the attention of writers and scientists. As soon as I went forward, he claims, I was attacked ferociously. There was nothing docile about the animal. It snarled and spat and clawed more venomously than anything I have seen. I was afraid it was going to break the snares and get away. And as there seemed no chance of getting him alive, as I wanted to, he claims, I gave him a smack with a heavy stick and knocked him out. That was the end of Gef, for I am certain it was the same animal. That seems a very ignominious end, if that is the case, if not unusual in human nature. Make of it what you will. Enjoy the film when it comes out, and perhaps the whole Gef saga will rise once more. Whichever way you look at it, it's news now, and it's been news then. Cheerio. You're gonna be yesterday's news.